Welcome to Creating from the Heart. I'm Suzy Vance, and today I have with me Diane Grams and Tim Lace. So, how are you today? Are you ready for this?
As ready as we could be, I guess.
Okay. You know, we all do different kinds of art, and I know you're a photographer, and I know you do frescoes recently. Is that what you do? Do you do more than that? Do you do other things? Do you play around? What do you do? What inspires you?
Well, you asked before about, the art of life. And I thought, I've said that so many times to people that I think that life is an art and that the objects we make are just one of those things, which I absolutely love doing that. It is a time when you close out all the needs that you have, like eating and cleaning the house and washing your clothes. And we love to grow food too, and make art. So I absolutely love to draw, and I've been a painter mostly in oil and cassine, but then I learned fresco about 40 years ago and really decided, since we have a place that I can slake the lime and bury it, it's all this complicated Renaissance stuff, that I was going to do it. And then I found out I can actually buy this stuff called slaked lime that's been aged for 10 years now. 5 years ago I found it, so I've been making it, and it was hard to find all the little pieces of the materials. It seems amazing, but pure earth pigments you need, and everything today is like cadmium or some dramatic, bright thing, and you need pigments that won't be devoured by the lime. And then you need lime and sand, and so it's these things that you need that have to have a little bit of uniqueness to them. But I started using beach sand, but that didn't work really well. You need this other kind of sand, and I use marble dust. So it took me a while to assemble these unique materials that you can't just go to Hobby Lobby or even Glenelg Firm and get them. You have to search for them.
So 40 years ago, you started doing this.
Yes.
And now you're back.
Yes, and now I'm back because I loved it, but it was so hard to get the lime. I went to buy it at a chemical company, and they said, well, you're going to have to go through an FBI check because it's also things that you can make bombs with, apparently, and which it can become very caustic, I guess. But anyway, so I absolutely love it, and I have some samples, and I can show you later if you'd like.
That'd be great.
But
and so, Tim.
Yes.
What triggered your getting into your medium?
Oh, it started early, with the cameras, film, Polaroid, and a ViewMaster with film, roll film, and then of course the magic of photography. The science of it, but the magic of it.
And how old were you when this happened?
Oh, really young. So 8, 9. I was always fascinated with science and chemistry, and then I had a visual sense, and I always thought, if a way to preserve moments in time, family moments, anything to. So photography, of course, it naturally led to photography and cameras and 35 millimeter, and then better cameras, and
you've been doing this forever.
Oh, it feels like that. Yeah, sure, it is. Yes, it seems like that.
Well, both of you seem so passionate about what you're doing.
Thank you. And Suzy, Diane didn't talk about all her travels to Italy and her fascination
she didn't.
With the frescoes and the Cimabues and Siena and all the other great things she's seen. But that's part of the fresco thing. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I threw that in.
Is that one of the things that inspires you?
Well, really, the one that I absolutely love is the Villa of Mysteries in Pompeii. And I worked in the library at IU in Bloomington, and there was this book that had them. And the Villa of Mysteries, it is a mystery. You don't really know what it is, but it is these women that are doing something on this platform, and there's a guy that's supposed to be Zeus, and and they think it's like some sort of the initiation of brides into the cult of Dionysus is what they call it.
Rite of passage.
But anyway, I just absolutely loved it. But I thought, somebody said to me that this bright red was because of the volcano, because it was buried by the explosion of Vesuvius, and they said the heat and blah, blah, blah. And so then when I went to Skowhegan this year, I was talking about it to a guy, and he says, no, you can do that color. And I go, all right, then I will. And so that's what I started doing with these. Well, this is really kind of a takeoff of this directly. This is, they have this faux marble and these faux trompe l'oeil kind of things and these shapes, but then this bright red and this bright green. This is really a pretty boring color. It's kind of an Indian red, but this is called Ercolano red. It's actually from Herculaneum, which is right next to Pompeii. So it is a little bit different. And then this green is just green oxide, which it could be, it's kind of an ugly color if you get it out of a tube. But this has, the lime is mixed with marble dust and it's super fine. And I trowel it on and it becomes kind of polished looking. And then when you put it in, when you paint into it, it takes on this incredible color. And it happens over time. I don't have any of my other ones with me, but over time in that you start painting and at first the surface won't take a lot of paint, but you have to paint on it for like 3 hours. You start with thin coats, like some of this is like maybe just one coat, but you just keep adding to it.
Yes.
And in the books, they talk about this thing called the golden hour when the lime is just ready. It's like, okay, I'm ready for it. And you just start as much as it will take. And the boys that were at the fresco studio at Skowhegan, they called it fresco madness because you had to stay there for a really long time and you had to paint slowly and it was really humid there. And so it would take sometimes like 8 hours for you to get to this point where you could paint on it right. So it really is an kind of intuitive thing that.
So what is it about the process that draws you in?
God, I got it all over myself
Yes,
now.
you did.
Well, what I really want to do is architectural pieces and, you know, things that are part of a wall. And because I love, when I left Skowhegan the first time in 1980 and I tried to do it, I just thought, well, nobody cares about fresco and nobody cares about permanence. They want to just do, you know, stuff that they can tear down and rebuild. And I kind of talked myself out of it. But over the years, I really kept holding on to it. And I love the idea of the permanence of it, the potential of the permanence if you have the right materials. Of course, if I drop that and break it, it's not going to be permanent. But if you have it on a wall, it's both, they're happiest on brick walls. And so just troweling it on, and then there's just something magical about the medium. But the other thing that really changed my artwork right now is that first of all, it's kind of like a performance because you have to plan everything out and you have to know what you're going to do. And I don't know if you saw that on here, but I actually did a drawing and then I trace it on here and you can see it's kind of incised. And you can also do like sign painters and do, you know, holes and dots on it, you know, put pigment through the holes. And I tried that and then I have to deal with that dot and I like not having that darkness on there, but so you have to plan it out, which most of my artwork, I like drawing, I usually just keep adding and adding and adding, and oil paint, it's like building up this surface. But this made me stop and think about what I wanted to do. And then you have to be ready to do it because you have to trowel on the last layer, and then you have to wait for it to be ready to even start painting. It has to be finger touch ready. You can no fingerprints. It's almost like an hour minimum you have to wait. And then you have to start painting. So you have to give yourself this 6 to 8 hour time frame. And the thing is it's a commitment. You have to stay there until it's done. And then when it's done, you have to leave. You know, it's like it's done because you can't really do anything else. You could always do egg yolk and stuff on top of it.
And this speaks to the fact that people have done this art forever.
Yeah.
And it's preserved.
Yes.
It's not like even an oil painting that could fade or could have to be refurbished in some way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think maybe you have to refurbish it. I don't know, but this crystallizes on the surface. And the other thing is it comes from cave paintings because they would get this red color and they would paint and the lime would be dripping in the water. And somehow that's what made the cave painting stick. It was like this pigment crystallized with the lime that was dripping down. And so it comes from cave paintings. And then, you know, literally every culture has, you know, China has frescoes, South and Central America, Hispanic, Italians, and then the Romans and Indonesia. And it really is, I don't know. I mean, it is a really weird passion about doing something on a wall. Even just me drawing on a wall. I did that sometimes in my studio, just do big things drawing. And
well, it's really interesting because this is something that you have to sit and strategically plan out and figure out how you're going to do.
mhm,
And here you are connected to this guy
mhm.
who does a flash.
Sometimes it's a process. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a.
So tell me about your process.
Well, I shoot black and white with film, and I process it myself. So I control the medium, and they still make film for film cameras, and I can still buy it. And
you control the outcome.
Yes, I work with a system similar to zone system, Ansel Adams, where you control the exposure, you determine the exposure by the contrast, and then you in turn control the development to get the pre-visualize, to get the desired look of the photo, the desired feel of the scene, the photograph. Mostly landscapes. I've done a lot of street photography, color digital, and that's taken me off on little side projects. The one project I'm working on now, I've always continued the traditional black and white landscapes, and those I'll always
right there.
I'll always do those.
Let's see a couple of these.
If you want to grab a couple,
This
you can
is great.
see these. Largely in the out west, and the right spot and the right light, and you can. And I use filters to get the dramatic effect sometimes, and like I said, it's an exposure and development and printing. So and of course I print.
Pull that one out too.
I print
That's one
these
of my
on
all-time favorites.
on gelatin silver paper. Some vintage papers that I have stockpiled that are still good, and so I'll continue this. But then I pick up side projects. The Indians. The Mardi Gras Indians in New Orleans has been a project that I'm working on. So we're actually gonna work together. I've taken the pictures, now I'm printing them, and then I'll print them in different formats. I've actually shown them, but we want to do something that's more of a larger interactive interpretive thing. We're not going to bring the Indians in, but we'll have some video. We'll bring the Mardi Gras parade in. We'll do some accompanying video. There are a couple movies, and Diane has a lot of YouTube material to work from. So, and make it more interpretive and.
So I'm going to ask you this question that everybody always asks artists.
Okay.
How do you make a living?
Well, yeah. Well.
We both worked in the arts our whole entire lives. And he worked in the photo exhibit industry, and I taught until very recently, but I taught at the university level. I was director of the Peace Museum in Chicago for almost a decade, and then I taught at the university level, and then I thought I was retiring, and then I've been teaching on and on. Right now I'm teaching in Chesterton at the Art Center.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm teaching adults, and but I taught kids for a while here in Michigan City, and that was really fun. But we've always made money off of our skill in art, and we've both sold some art. But I have to say that even now, when this guy who was curating a show came to our studio a month or two ago and saw my frescoes and just absolutely loved them, and he says, "I want these in a show." And I was at first really excited, and then I was like so sad that I had to go put them somewhere. Yeah, and then I said, okay, I have to do another one. So then I finished this one, and I told him he can't even see it because I don't want to let it go yet. So I think selling work is kind of a little bit painful, but
I would agree.
Yeah,
it's like giving one of your children away.
Exactly, people have said that, and so. I have friends who've earned a living off of making their art, and they, like one guy who we know is a potter, and it is the same kind of, this grind. You have to do stuff on certain schedules when things are available.
And the shows are a lot of work. And
yeah, but you have to make the work to sell. But we've done shows.
That's fun. Yeah.
I was a member of Artemisia, so I was doing a show every year of my own work. Plus, I was directing the Peace Museum, which was absolutely fantastic. We were doing shows on domestic violence and gun violence in the 90s. You know, and I literally thought that we were never going to have another war. It was the 90s and people wanted us to do an anti-war show. And I go, no, let's do things about what's going on in our country. And then, you know, all this other stuff happens. So it's just, I like that intense content of work too, but
Yeah,
but
her art has always had an edge to it. I mean, whether it's some feministic art or activism art, some sort of act. She's always been involved
all
with some sort of
these,
activism. Yeah.
those were at Artemisia. I got an art space grant. I did a book called A Prayer in No Man's Land, and it was really about empowering my sister who was getting a divorce, and it was just about, you know, how,
Yeah.
you know, you just don't need them. But then that one was at RH Love Gallery, and that one was also, that was called Say No Evil, and it's like this atomic explosion was
Right.
going off in your mouth, but that was during the whole censorship era of the late 80s and early 90s. And you can see I've got my gloves that I've laid down.
Uh-huh.
And that one is also called See No Evil, and their eyes are chained together with barbed wire.
Right.
And then all these little rolling girls came from, I did this, when I did that show, the book, I did one of these girls like 10 feet tall. I drew it on the wall. And it was because I do remember my mom telling me that I can't do that when I was in kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher saying, yes, she can. But then, you know, I forgot it, and I was looking at Boy Scout Weeblos, the Weeblos books, and they were getting awards for doing diving rolls, forward rolls, and backward rolls, and building things and throwing things. And in the girls' books, it was like little girl setting a table, and I was so pissed. And this is before I studied gender. I just kind of like suddenly realized we're socialized differently as people.
Why did they let me take woodworking instead of home ec? But they did.
Oh, they did? Well, good for you. You're
door.
shocking. You're one of the shocking
You
ones.
broke the glass ceiling.
No, when I was in junior high, we took home ec, and I
Oh,
remember, and I cooked at home, so it was no big deal to me, but I remember some girls did not, and this one girl was whipping whipped cream, and she just couldn't do it, and I'm just like, oh, God. But I did not, and I still love saws and you know, power tools. I just love that you can do stuff with them, and I still don't do it very well. That's why he helps me.
That's my job.
He's really
My
good
duty.
at it. He's really good at it.
Well,
But
I want to thank you both very much for sharing your passion with us, and it's great.
Yeah.
So we'll see you soon in some gallery, I'm sure.
yes,
Very
I really.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right, I gotta turn this off.
Coming to a town near you.
Actually,
Coming
let
to-
me ask you one more question. If
Okay.
you had any advice,
Yeah,
each
can I
of
just
you,
move those over just a
if
little
you
bit?
had any advice for somebody who was younger than you are, starting off, what would you say?
As an artist?
Starting off as a person who wanted to do something but maybe was holding back.
Well, I think you have to take every opportunity to see how things work. And I remember when I was probably a teenager, we were making Christmas cookies, and I wanted to cut my own shapes rather than use the shape thing. And my mom didn't really like that idea, but I did. She let me do some of them where I cut my own shapes, and she used the things because she wanted to use them, you know, give them to people or whatever. But I think just exploring how things fit together and how things, you know, drawing, I just get people, when I'm teaching drawing, I just say, let's just draw a line, and let's draw more. Now let's erase, because an erasure is a great thing. And just the interplay back and forth, it is what makes an artwork beautiful is really your own engagement with it. You can't just go, oh, done, you know. It really is like working through, you can feel your spirit working through something, and everything is different. How many times I've done these little rolling girls, every one of them is different, and you know, they take on different personalities, and it's a different person who comes out of it and stuff. So it's really interesting.
What would you say? You, the 8-year-old photographer.
Play by the rules. No, establish, and this is something Diane is very good at, establish networks. Don't burn your bridges.
Yes.
Play by the rules, but associate yourself with people that are of similar interests, not to be competitive, I mean, but that's the
Right.
that's the pitfall.
Yeah.
You tend to be competitive, which sometimes is a good thing,
Uh-huh.
but established networks don't burn your bridges, but still, if you're going to follow your passion, follow your heart, do what you like to do, and if you do it as a job, it won't be work.
It won't be work.
I mean, it's cliched. It is an old cliche.
But it's true.
Everybody says this. Yeah,
It's
do something you really love.
Well, there
That's right.
is a sociological study called the power of weak ties, and I got a PhD and I wrote my dissertation on art parties, and it was basically on social networks. It was on art parties and territorial markers, and it really was this thing about how you have different kinds of networks. Whatever you want to do, you find the network of people that are doing that, and it really is like a very loose, knit sweater, and you just keep moving through it, and different things. Like I said at Skowhegan this summer, I'm going to do an exterior fresco next summer, and I already, like, I just said it, and now I have like these opportunities that I can do it. Like we have a wall for you, and so it's kind of like I just have to kind of work through getting enough materials, work through the structural things.
It's sort of like saying to the universe, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
And then bam.
Yeah, and like before you are ready, it's like suddenly like, oh my God, yeah, you're going for it. So but yeah, and then the studio at St. Mary's, I was at Skowhegan. And I had my own studio plus the fresco studio, and I've had spaces here forever. I have the fresco stuff in the garage, but I just decided we really need to get a studio. And we went to the First Fridays and found out that the quilters were moving, and literally within a half hour, we said we want that studio.
Both
and it
of
was
you.
over. Yeah, it was
Oh,
over.
great. The two of you are going to get to work together.
We need to grow. Yeah, we needed to grow.
The studio is as big as 4 of
Yes,
this room. I mean,
right.
it's just so beautiful and you just feel like I just told people, I feel like my soul just like got 10 times bigger in that room. It just went,
well, here's to 2022.
Yeah, it's gonna, I think, I think it's gonna be I don't know. It just seems like every year gets better.
Game changer.
Yeah, every year gets better. Even with COVID, it was terrible, but it was wonderful. Yeah, for us to just stay home and get our work done. And then at Skowhegan, they usually have people that are in college. That's when I went, but they were closed for COVID. And so when they were reopening, they decided to offer this alumni summer, and what a gift. And so the whole thing was paid for. All I had to do was show up, and it was great.
It
was great. Yeah. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you both very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Suzy.
Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living. See you soon.